What does FNAF Help Wanted hide off camera in the Spooky Mansion and Danger Keep Out minigames? If you weren't scared off by the Afraid of the Dark minigames, then unfortunately for you, things are about to get much worse. In the Spooky Mansion, we'll be making a mad dash through an animatronic-ridden hallway, building a chimeric, Mangle-inspired animatronic, and even doing some trick-or-treating. It's scarier than it sounds, trust me. We'll also be going back to the basics and playing the Halloween-themed FNAF 1 minigame, Danger Keep Out. As we venture through these locations, we'll be searching for things not typically seen by the player, including a hidden, functional flashlight in the Trick-or-Treat minigame, as well as plenty of T-posing animatronics. There's lots to see, so I hope you enjoyed today's dive into the Curse of Dreadbear DLC. So as we head into the Spooky Mansion minigames, the first we'll tackle is Hallway Crawl. Here, our goal is just as simple as reaching the other side, only there are a few things we'll have to look out for. Throughout this hallway, there are several doors that Nightmare Bonnie and Nightmare Chica can pop out of. These animatronics can only attack you if you're standing too close when they step out, which would usually be fairly easy to avoid. After getting far enough into the hallway, Nightmare Freddy will appear behind you, forcing you to keep moving as much as you possibly can. Nightmare Foxy also appears occasionally, and you must avoid being spotted, or else you will be attacked. Reaching the bedroom at the end means victory, so now let's take a closer look at this spooky hallway. So obviously, with the lights on, this hallway is a little more welcoming. We can see that the distance to the end is reasonably far, but at least it's not the nightmare fuel we were just looking at. To start, we can take a look at this entire map from an aerial perspective, where we can see that the floor extends quite a ways past the door behind us. At the other end of the hallway, we can take a look at the bedroom where we finished the level, and we can see it's a faithful recreation of the FNAF 4 bedroom. This entire level is of course based on that location, so we can see a bunch of props that were previously used in the Night Terrors minigames, including the wallpaper and doors used in the hallway itself. Now, at the end of this level, there are two hallways that lead out of the player's sight and onto these large sections of flooring. These areas are completely inaccessible to the player, but they're not entirely unseen. As you can see, just beside the door to the bedroom, we'll find two walls blocking these side hallways. As we reach the end of the level, these walls beside us will be removed, allowing us to see the hallways hidden behind them. That's not the only trick used in this area either, as there's a one-side wall placed here as well. As we approach the bedroom door, we will pass through it, creating the illusion that the hallway behind us has disappeared. You can actually just walk back through this wall and see it for yourself though, which is pretty funny. Now, I'm not sure why this is, but when loading into this map, there's a chance that it will be mirrored. The bedroom will be facing the opposite direction, and we can see that these side hallways are also mirrored. It appears that the entire map has been flipped, since we can see two lamps typically found in the hallway now floating in the same orientation just beyond the end of the level. I'm not sure why this is done, perhaps just to mix up the player's experience, but if you think you know why, let me know in the comments. While exploring this map, I also came across two doors placed out of bounds in close proximity to each other. I experimented for a bit, but was unable to uncover their purpose. Next, we can take a look beneath the hallway, where we'll find Nightmare Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy all stored next to each other in the void. They are placed down here until they are needed within the map, where they will assume their proper positions. In this shot, you can see each of them after being moved into the map, and we can now have a closer look at their animations. We can watch as Bonnie and Chica open their doors and step into the hallway, and if the player is not caught, step back out of sight once more. They will then either move away from these locations or remain here and repeat this process. Foxy's animations are a bit more interesting though. He will warp in and out of the map similar to the others, but he can also turn into this little Foxy plush. It's pretty funny how this is achieved though. So when the player gets near Foxy, there's a chance that he drops out of sight and this stuffed animal appears where he was standing. When this happens, we can see that he just compresses into the world's worst Autobot and unloads. It's hilarious watching this giant, menacing animatronic shrink into a little harmless ball. Glorious! When Nightmare Freddy appears, we'll see that he just kind of loads in at the end of the hallway and begins walking towards us. He's super creepy looking, especially when viewed with the lighting effects disabled. He has 3 Freddles attached to his model, and they just sort of scream as they get closer and closer. That's gonna be a huge nope for me. Finally, I want to explore this level's movement mechanics because it's quite different from the free roam physics used in the corn maze. Instead of being placed on a flat plane where we can move around in a full range of motion, we're only capable of moving back and forth. And it's even more limited than that. We're not technically standing on anything, as we can warp the player out of bounds, and we'll still be locked to the same exact range of motion. We can only move forwards and backwards the same distance as the hallway too. We have managed to cheat gravity though, so we've got that going for us. That's it for Hallway Crawl, so let's jump ahead to build a Mangle. In this game, we have to do exactly what the name insists. Build our very own mangled animatronic. In front of the player are 4 screens, each displaying a different animatronic part. These parts will constantly change, and we have 60 seconds to collect as many of them as possible as they pass by on the conveyor belt. If the player correctly places 7 out of the 10 parts in the receptacle, a mangled animatronic performer is created, and you've successfully completed the level. Freddles will also pass by on the conveyor belt, and we must shock them to avoid being temporarily stunned. Also, Mangle is in the vent above us and gets closer with every mistake, so it's probably best not to mess up. So switching the lights on, we can see that this entire level takes place in the center of what looks like a garbage heap. There are piles of animatronic parts and metal scraps surrounding us, but not much else. Following the parts receptacle down beneath the map, we'll see that it just comes to an end and does not lead anywhere. While I was down here though, I found a button placed out of bounds just floating here. It lacks the symbols seen on the buttons used within the map, and as far as I know, it does not serve any purpose during this minigame. Back inside the map, we can have a look at the conveyor belts and see how they function off screen. So these belts constantly move throughout the night, carrying animatronic parts past the player and into the incinerators behind us. When viewed up close, you can see that each of these parts are loaded in near the end of these pipes, just barely inside the trash pile. You don't actually need hacks to view this either. The parts can be seen loading in from the player's regular position. As these parts reach the incinerator, they'll pass through the wall of flames where they then unload. The Freddles work a bit differently though, as they'll be frozen out of sight and remain here until they make their way across the conveyor belt. When jump scaring the player, we can see that a separate model is loaded in temporarily. After this animation plays out, the incinerated Freddle will then shoot across the map and back to one of the 2 starting locations. As for building the animatronic itself, we can see that each part we drop into the hole will be unloaded once out of sight. After 60 seconds have passed, our creation will be loaded in just beneath this closed vent, where it then rises into view. They just perpetually spin until the minigame ends, or we get jump scared by Mangle. And speaking of Mangle, they are currently suspended a short ways above the vent they crawl through. When an incorrect piece is chosen, they will enter the vent and get close with each subsequent mistake, eventually resulting in a jump scare. There's not much else to see here though, so let's take a look at the following minigame. Trick or treat. As we arrive at this seemingly abandoned mansion, we're presented with 6 animatronic masks that are placed next to the door. In order to beat this night, all you have to do is knock on the door and get your candy. Though, it's not as easy as it sounds. After ringing the bell, we can see several animatronics within the mansion begin to move around. After a short timer, one of these characters will open the door, and we must slip on their matching mask to avoid being jump scared. After guessing the animatronic correctly 3 times, candy will pour out the door, and the night will be completed. Moving the camera inside the mansion, we can take a look at each of the animatronics in their dormant positions. The player has not yet rung the doorbell, so they will remain here in their idle animations until we do. Heading into these back hallways, you'll see that they don't actually lead anywhere. The staircase in the center of the building doesn't lead anywhere either, it just turns to the right and comes to an end out of the player's sight. Now the mansion itself only occupies a portion of this map overall. The rest of the level is taken up by the graveyard, as well as this small wooded area. A bunch of the trees in the front of the woods have grid textures applied to them, but the rest are textured normally. What's more interesting though, are these eyes that are placed throughout. If you turn around at any point during this minigame, you can see several sets of eyes glaring at you from afar, but they aren't eyes at all. They're actually just small pieces of yellow geometry with a glow effect applied to them. As they appear and disappear, you'll see that they'll fly straight through the ground and out of bounds. With the camera moved below the map, you can see them constantly shooting out into the void, which is pretty funny. Heading back to the mansion though, we can have a look at the animatronics as they move around inside. There are several locations these characters can stand in, and we can watch from a different angle as they move between these positions. When an animatronic is chosen to stand behind the door, they will simply snap into place behind this black one-sided wall. When the door is opened, this object will be unloaded temporarily before the door closes again. Also, the masks are just moved in front of the player camera when equipped, similar to the Freddy mask in the FNAF 2 minigame. Each of the animatronics present can appear at the door, all except for Mangle. Their purpose is to block the player's view of the mansion's interior, and they must be shooed away using the corresponding mask. Throughout this minigame, they're actually hidden behind this boarded up window on the 2nd floor. You may have not known this, but when looking up at this window, you can actually trigger the sound cue before they even drop down. Have a listen. Finally, while exploring this map, I found something rather interesting hidden just beneath the front porch. On the ground just beneath where the player is standing, a flashlight is hidden just out of sight. As you may recall, this is the same model used in Plush Baby's Dark Rooms minigame. In this particular case, it was clipping through the door behind the player, and its controls were tied to the player camera. This flashlight functions a bit differently though. Rather than being tied to the player camera, if the player is warped beneath the porch, we can actually pick it up directly. It will be powered down the moment we grab it, and the battery begins draining until it dies. I don't believe it can be turned off once activated, as I was unable to do so while messing around with it, but it makes me wonder why this was placed here. My hunch is that this level was originally intended to have a flashlight mechanic of some kind, and after this concept was scrapped, the developers had simply forgotten about this asset. That's it for Trick or Treat though, so let's take a quick peek at the Dreadbear minigame. In this game, the player is tasked with preparing a brain to be inserted into Dreadbear's skull. To do this, you must use a syringe to color each section of the brain to match the reference on your left. You also have to charge the brain so that the numbers on the panel line up, and then adjust his neural feedback loop to match the signal provided by this machine. The minigame is won if the player completes each task successfully before inserting his new brain. So with the lights on, we can see how this map is put together. For starters, the hallways surrounding the play area do not lead anywhere. Just out of sight, they lead into the void, which makes sense considering we would never be able to see this far. On the other side, we can see that it's the same story. There's nothing over here but a barrel and an empty coffin. Behind Dreadbear, we can see that the castle itself sits atop this flat plane. The archways that make up this building are placed atop the dirt floor, and we'll also find that there's a distinct lack of walls here as well. The player would never know it, but when playing through this minigame, they're staring off directly into the void. As for Dreadbear, we can see that the platform he's attached to is simply hovering directly above this hole. There's nothing down here though, and it leads directly out of bounds. The track that Dreadbear arrives on leads through the archways in the center of the map, and it ends just beyond the door itself. This map is actually really small, and because of this, there isn't a whole lot for us to see. With that being said, let's jump into the next set of minigames. Danger, Keep Out. After loading into Night 1, you'll find yourself in a familiar location. Well, sort of. As I said before, this is a Halloween-themed version of the original FNAF 1 minigame, and it takes place in a very similar location. The map looks a bit different though, as there's now a light button on the control panel and a breaker switch on our left. Both doors are boarded up as well, meaning we are unable to close them. For the most part, these nights play out the same. You must keep tabs on Jacko Bonnie and Jacko Chica as they attempt to reach your office, flashing them with the light before they can break down the boards and jump scare you. On night 2, Grim Foxy will be activated, and you'll have to flash him with a light to keep him at bay. Finally, on night 3, Dreadbear will begin his approach, only stopping momentarily when being flashed by our light. When low on power, you must cycle it off and on again, using this switch to bring it back up to 100%. Recap aside, we can have a look at this map up close and see how it has changed. There are all kinds of spooky props found throughout this level, including witch hats, broken boards, and plenty of jack-o'-lanterns. If we head into the backstage room, we'll find what I believe is the Nightmare Endo's arm placed on the floor. This object is always visible on camera 5, but because of how close it is, you'd never know that it's not attached to anything. Heading into the dining area, we'll find Bonnie and Chica standing on stage, but peeking behind Pirate's Cove, we'll see that Foxy must have called in sick today. He's not used on night 1, so he's currently stored beneath the map and out of the player's sight. Back aside the map, we can watch as Bonnie and Chica leave the stage, and as they do, the inside of their suits will begin glowing bright orange. As expected, the security cameras will turn to static as these characters snap into their idle poses. This is in line with the other minigame, although these animatronics don't function exactly the same. When moving down the hallways towards our office, they will not stop and wait in the doorway for us to notice them. Instead, they'll begin attacking the boards relentlessly, and on the final hit, wind up for a high-powered shoulder bash. Similarly, Chica will attack 3 times before charging through the boards and triggering a jump scare. When these enemies are flashed with our light and vanish from the cameras, we'll find them stored beneath the map. Until they're moved back inside the pizzeria, they will assert dominance far below the map. While viewing this, Bonnie was also warped down here and they fused into the ultimate T-posing animatronic. Glorious! On night 2, we can see that Foxy will be loaded in behind the curtain, and we can watch from a different angle as he steps out of Pirate's Cove. He'll open the curtain slowly with his hook and then step out completely. After this, he'll begin sprinting down the hallway, resulting in an unavoidable jump scare. Unlike the other animatronics, when Foxy is flashed by our light, they will simply reset back to their starting position instead of leaving the map. As for night 3, we can take a look at Dreadbear as he begins leaving the stage, and it's pretty hilarious. As he steps down into the dining area, he'll start floating above the ground. Eventually, gravity kicks back in though, and he's forced back onto the floor, where he continues as usual. Dreadbear will slowly approach the player as the night goes on, eventually reaching her office. To avoid this, the player must stop Dreadbear by flashing him with the lights as frequently as possible. When this is done, Dreadbear will stop moving and fall into this dormant state temporarily. While viewing this, I noticed something a bit strange. The room on camera 5 has a one-sided wall that is facing the dining area. It's visible when viewed from the outside, and we can see what looks like wooden trim clipping through it. It's weird because the wallpaper attached to this trim does not match the rest of the map. This section of the map is hard to see through the cameras, so most people wouldn't even notice that it's here. Dreadbear can be seen walking through this impromptu doorway, but even then, it's too pixelated to make it out very much. Finally, there is a pretty interesting Easter egg that can be triggered on night 3. So typically when loading into this minigame, the phone will ring, but nobody will be on the other end. However, if the phone does not ring and the player still picks it up, a beeping sound will be heard. Shortly after, scanning for glitches will appear on the monitor as the entire facility is covered in static. No glitches will be found, and the player is then taken back to the DLC's title screen. While this Easter egg is taking place, we can move the camera throughout the pizzeria and have a closer look. Majority of the walls and objects will be covered in a grid texture. Aside from a few assets, they'll be bright pink instead. Among the objects covered in these basic textures is Jacko Chica, who looks absolutely horrifying. Foxy and Bonnie will be completely overcome by this, losing their original texture to this terrifying bugged appearance. Dreadbear is in pretty rough shape too, with only their teeth and endoskeleton being unchanged. What's funny is that when this Easter egg begins, all the trash from our office instantly vanishes, and we can find it flying downwards below the map and into the void. I guess it doesn't count as littering if it's in the vacuum of space. And with that, that's everything I found hidden out of bounds in the Spooky Mansion and Danger Keep Out minigames. And as such, our coverage of the Curse of Dreadbear DLC. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like to help out the channel, and subscribe for future coverage on all your favorite horror games. Thanks for watching, and cheers.